Preface. When the Italian chef turned fixer, Angelo Agrisi, started spilling the beans on Bosasa in January 2019, I'd been investigating the company for 13 years. What had started out in 2006 as just another story about prison tender irregularities had grown into the biggest threat to President Cyril Ramaphosa's New Dawn, which was built on promises of clean governance and anti-corruption arrests. Agrisi's captivating revelations meant state capture was no longer limited to former President Jacob Zuma and the Gupta family. Alongside Agrisi, Bosasa CEO Gavin Watson, one of the Watson brothers who'd fought in the liberation struggle in the 1970s and 1980s, became a household name for South Africa's chattering classes. Suddenly, the African National Congress, ANC, was on trial, and the story to which I dedicated more than half of my working life as an investigative journalist was threatening to bring down the governing party and its president. A few weeks before the May 2019 general election, the ANC was polling less than 50% of the popular vote. Pollsters and researchers who actively tracked the factors influencing the vote identified the Bosasa revelations as the main reason why thousands of potential ANC voters looked set to take their crosses away from Ramaphosa's party. The full extent of Bosasa's capture of not only the Correctional Services Department, but the entire ANC, ultimately contributed to making it impossible for Ramaphosa and the ANC to cross the 60% threshold they'd hoped for. The ANC finally ended on 57.5% of the national vote, the lowest by Africa's oldest liberation movement since it had come to power under Nelson Mandela in 1994. In November 2018, Ramaphosa admitted he'd received a 500,000 rand donation from Watson to his 2017 campaign fund for the ANC presidency. A few weeks into his term as state president, Ramaphosa's detractors inside and outside of the ANC turned the spotlight on this matter. It was clear that Bosasa had become the millstone around Ramaphosa's neck. In July 2019, Bosasa threatened to derail Ramaphosa's New Dawn tenure when Public Protector Busisiwe Makwebane found that the president had violated his oath of office by not declaring to Parliament Watson's gift. Mkwebane, who'd become the main protagonist in the fight back against the Ramaphosa administration, used the Bosasa donation as the launchpad from which to mount a full-out attack on Ramaphosa's campaign funding and integrity. On the morning of 26 August 2019, just before dawn, as the net started closing in on him and he was trapped between the ANC's warring factions, Gavin Watson drove at high speed into a concrete pillar outside O.R. Tambo International Airport in Johannesburg. His death on the scene sparked a bitter battle over the legacy of a good comrade who'd gone rogue. The question on everyone's lips was, what secrets was Watson taking with him to the grave? In this book, I try to answer this question as far as possible. Who exactly were Gavin Watson and his facilities management company in Krugersdorp that threatened to bring down Ramaphosa's Tumamina project? The story of Bosasa is not of one company or tender that was awarded corruptly by a comrade to his crony. It's the story of how corruption engulfed a once proud liberation movement and turned freedom fighters into self-serving parasites. It's the story of how political connectivity and noble BEE policies were abused to enrich a new political elite and prop up the ANC at the expense of the poor. It's the story of how honest comrades who stood in the way of looting and plunder were crushed. And it's the story of how religion was used to create a state capture cult in which loyalty and fear trumped human rights and the rule of law. It's a story that must now be told. Adriaan Basson, September 2019.